Alright guys, so in this video, I'm going to be discussing the possibility of Orlando getting an MLB team. Now, we've been talking about expansion, what cities, Nashville, Portland, Salt Lake City. Orlando is in a unique spot, and that is because it is in Florida. We do have two MLB teams in the state right now, and they both have historic attendance issues. I mean, you're talking about Tropicana Field, Tampa Bay, the St. Petersburg area, really struggling, bad stadium. Then you've got Lone Depot Park, which is a super, modern new stadium. They also have crazy attendance problems. Why would MLB give another team to the state of Florida after the two disasters we've seen? That's why I think Orlando, their number one option, is to possibly attract the Rays in a relocation. And when you look at Orlando and their expansion pitch, they actually have a team and a logo called the Orlando Dreamers. Now, I'm not unique in this opinion, but this does look very childish. You've got the two baseball bats. You've got, to me, I don't think the name Dreamers is good. Honestly, if they got the Rays, I would want them to just be called the Orlando Rays. I think that's a pretty cool name that fits in well. And you could go through like a branding thing where you change the colors a little bit to make it unique to Orlando, but I think the Orlando Rays sounds good. We're going to get into their entire pitch. They've got a very unique ballpark that I really do like. Unfortunately, with the way the ballpark is designed, it does come off looking kind of like a tennis racket to a degree, because they have the stadium with a translucent roof that is not retractable. And I do think if you're building a stadium in Florida, we've seen all the different Rays renderings on their potential stadiums. Virtually every single one is a dome, but with like a translucent see-through roof. And we haven't seen that yet when it comes to MLB baseball. So that would be big to get a see-through translucent roof. But if you actually look at the roof, you can see it keeps going past the field, past the stands, and it creates kind of a little narrow line, and that's where like a shopping mall would be, little shops for people to hang out at. The most unique thing about this proposal, and you can see there's also some nice little man-made ponds. I like that. The fact that it's right next to a highway, that's pretty tough, but you do have to understand that's really good in terms of people coming into the game with it being right next to a highway. But when a stadium is right next to a highway, there's just it's just not, I don't know, it just doesn't feel like a home to me. But either way, most stadiums are. You can take a look at the interior of it and kind of some nice good exterior photos. Bringing Major League Baseball to Orlando, a world-class facility. The vision for the stadium is to provide a unique experience for all types of fans. The stadium capacity is expected to be 45,000 people. So when I see that, I immediately think that there's just no way. There is no way. When you talk about a big MLB stadium right now, you're talking about 40,000 people. Because most stadiums that are being designed today seat like 32,000, 35,000, and then a bunch of standing room. If you're talking about 45,000 without standing room, and maybe in a World Series game you can get 50K here, that is crazy. There will be many different aspects of the stadium to explore, and the venue is being designed to maximize fan experience. The preferred location for the stadium is in the heart of the tourist district on I-Drive. As we will compete with other local attractions, this venue will meet the standards expected of an Orlando tourist destination. Baseball will be the main anchor in the district, but it will be a space where locals and tourists can gather alike. So they're putting it in a good part for, tourists and the foot traffic, you would think, right there. And then this is their full timeline with the most recent update coming in 2023. This is a $1.7 billion ballpark. So yeah, honestly, the price tag makes complete sense. It's a translucent roof. That's going to cost more. And then if you add on that extra part that's connected into the stadium, this is something totally unique where the roof is extended so far past the stadium. Listen, I'm all for unique things. $1.7 billion, that makes sense. It says Orlando Orlando is the country's 17th largest media market, the largest media market without a major league team. In fact, it is larger than 9 other markets that already have an MLB team. With the annual growth rate of 2.3%, the Orlando population is one of these nation's fastest growing, and the average resident in Orlando is 33 years old. So all of that, and then they talk about the tourism, and I think this is really how Orlando would attract a team. Orlando is the most popular U.S. travel destination with over 75 million tourists in 2022, so they would be really reliant on tourism, because when you actually look up their population just as a city without it, they're ranked below like Cleveland, Ohio, and we've seen the Guardians struggle with attendance. They're like right on par with Cincinnati. So when it comes to Orlando, I'm not seeing certainly I think they would get better attendance than the Rays. But then again, if the Rays built their new stadium in, the Tampa area, they would probably also up attendance significantly. But this is the thing for MLB. They're already dealing with 2 issues. The Rays, I'm about 50-50 on them moving. If they do move, I actually don't think they would go to Orlando, although Orlando would be probably the second option behind Nashville. I think they'd probably go to Nashville. I guess maybe it opens the idea, if the Rays go to Nashville, that lowers it back down to 1 team in the state of Florida, and you could really pitch tourism. We're the number 1 in terms of foot traffic for tourism in the United States. You're putting a team in Las Vegas. They get less tourism than we do. So why shouldn't we get a team? You can understand where they're kind of coming at this from with Orlando and that whole aspect, but you're really reliant on that. I mean, so is Las Vegas if they're actually going to be. The problem I think MLB is going to realize, and the Vegas thing is fine, Oakland, it wasn't working out, whatever, we get it. But it's just so different when it comes to MLB than every other sport, because there's so many more home games. Even when you compare it to NHL or NBA, it's like double the home games. There's so much supply, which means it's going to be very hard to fill up, the stadium. And going with 45,000, that is an aggressive capacity. You're talking about, I guess it's not too crazy, but I would cut it down to about 40K, and then you could do standing room up to 45,000. I'm really interested in this entire complex. Like, imagine if they got an all-star game. Theoretically, how many people do you think they could fit in the entire complex? Like, with the shopping mall, with the area behind the stadium? I mean, that's a very, you could get standing room tickets just to, peer in and see. It's definitely interesting. It almost kind of feels like a rainforest type vibe in there. I like it. I think it'd be something cool to see if the Rays ended up moving here, or maybe the Rays move to Nashville. That frees up a spot for Florida to potentially get a team. But this is all based on tourism. When you look at Orlando's population, it's just not impressive enough based on the struggles that MLB has had in the state of Florida. The population alone is not going to get it done. They're going to need the massive tourism push, and that's what they're really going for when it comes to the Orlando Dreamers. So, do I think Orlando can get an MLB expansion team? It really just depends on the Rays situation. Orlando's chances hinge on, if the Rays get a new stadium, I think there's no way. There's no way MLB would put another team in the state of Florida. But if the Rays move possibly to Orlando or possibly to Nashville, that could open up a spot in the state of Florida where MLB could say, all right, the Rays situation, it was partly because the stadium's in St. Petersburg and the stadium, Tropicana Field, is horrible. The Marlins situation is a lot harder to explain. I would say with the Marlins, when you look at Miami, they're just not a fun baseball team. I mean, they have been bottom 5 in terms of offense since they moved to that ballpark virtually every year outside of the Giancarlo Stanton MVP year, when he hit 59 home runs. So they're not a fun team, but that's not to excuse. I mean, when you build a new ballpark and 2 years into it, you're have the 3rd worst attendance and you're closing the upper deck, there is something seriously wrong. Okay, so I think MLB looks at the Miami Marlins situation and says, we were kind of hoping for a lot of, foot traffic, a lot of tourism coming into the stadium for the attendance, and it didn't happen. And then you can kind of play devil's advocate. Well, why are they going to Vegas? Because I think Vegas has a proven model to where you've seen an NHL team, the Golden Knights, go there and be fine and sell out games and have so much support. Vegas has a lot more of a proven model than the state of Florida does when it comes to MLB teams. MLB is completely different than, even NBA, you take a look at Heat fans, those people don't show up until the second quarter. They had a lot of problems with that. They sell out every game, sure, but it's like the idea of being fashionably late. Overall, for an expansion team, I would probably give the city of Orlando about a 15 to a 20% chance. To me, it just feels like it just comes down to the Rays. And I would say right now with the Rays, it has to be 50-50 on it, because we've seen the thing with the Rays. It's the same script as Oakland. Try and build a new stadium, try and build a new stadium, try and build a new stadium. The owner says he wants to, and then it doesn't end up working out. I do think the Rays situation is different from Oakland, because I do not think MLB is going to waive the relocation fee, which could force the Rays, unless like a Nashville group decided to pay for the relocation fee and just take over the team. Like if the Rays owner decided to sell, who's also very cheap. When it comes to relocation, you're dealing with a lot of cheap owners. The Rays owner's very cheap. John Fisher, the Oakland owner, is very cheap. So they're going to be cheap. They don't want to have to pay a relocation fee, but we will have to see. Super unique stadium with a stadium district kind of built right into it, connected to it, with the exact same roof. So this is an option for MLB, and certainly we won't know if Orlando does get a team, let's say by 2027 or 2028. You're really not going to know if MLB baseball works in Orlando until about 2033 or 2034, because those first few years, you're going to pretty much sell out a lot of games just because it's new. I would say, would it work? What my prediction would be, probably not. We've just seen too much with Florida, although you could make the argument there are different circumstances. It just seems like with Florida and MLB, it is not the best of fits, but I am very intrigued with their ballpark. It's very impressive. I like the translucent roof. I like the stadium district connected to it. So guys, that is going to do it for this video. Make sure you're following me on X. Link to that's always in the description.